fire department is your fire department, right? You guys have a hand in where they are, what they do, when they respond. They are 100% dedicated to wildland fire all the time. There are no other priorities for a wildland department. So when there's a call for a wildfire, they are going to go. Contractors are going to have other priorities.
We won't take that from your time.
That's a hint.
Contractors are going to have other priorities. They have boards of their own. Their priorities are going to take lead over wildland fire if their board says so. Trying to speed this up. I've been in this in wildfire since I was 20. So 1995, I started. I've worked as a fire warden for Tooele County in Utah. I have experiences working as a county fire warden and the workload that they take on. The project work that he discussed is a big part of that. But none of that will ever take priority over responding to a fire. You're not responsible for fire response on the gorge, as that is Forest Service ground, right? But your county fire is there. They're there to help support. They're there to catch those fires. We are not going to be able to make it there that quickly. The ground is difficult to get to, covered in juniper. We have less time to respond than ever before. Fires are growing at an explosive rate these days. The fuels are not adapted to the changes in temperature and moisture, lack of moisture that we've been getting over the last few years. The county fire department helps us cover that ground by being available. We have a good working relationship. I've been here a year, and he reached out to me at one of our meetings that we had early on when I got here, and we've had a working relationship ever since. Your county fire department is your hard link to the federal fire agencies. Without the county fire department, your communication with the federal agencies on any incident is going to drop off significantly. Historically, in my experience, and I'm not saying that this is the way it works here, historically, in my experience, city fire departments, district fire departments either refuse or cannot communicate with federal resources while they're on an incident. This is going to put your volunteers at risk on those incidents. If we don't know where they are and we start burning some ground or something, and we're not communicating with those resources, not going to be a good ending on that fire. With the county fire department and that hard link, that's where we know, that's how we communicate with those folks. He communicates with them, we communicate with him, everybody's okay.
Any last comments? We're 4 minutes in. I apologize because we're.
That
doing
was
this
4 minutes?
4 minutes so far, yeah.
Oh.
And so I apologize for cutting you short, but
I
since
tell
we're
you
doing
what
this
I'll
out of
do.
order.
I will email my comments to Mike and he can give them to you guys
Thank you.
at a later time. That work?
Appreciate that.
One last comment, the cost of contracting never stays stagnant and it never goes down.
Thank you. Did we have one other? Okay.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Jackson Ramsey. Family owns cow-calf ranch, South Rock Springs, based in the Little Mountain area. In 2000, a wildfire in August ripped through, and we did lose the barn, the corrals, the fences. We're still trying to rebuild today. I would just ask that you guys consider that. I'd hope that we'd keep fire suppression services where they are today, and that we'd have coverage of the county so we can prevent something like that from happening once again. That is all.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jackson.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, with that, are you leaving us?
No, I'm not.
Okay, then we're going to have comment afterwards. So thank you. I'll turn this floor over to Commissioner Lloyd to present to us findings and for the commission's review from our board that was put together for the county fire review.
Mr.
Commissioner.
Chairman, if I could just introduce into that.
Feel free. Another, yes.
I think it's important the public understand once this committee was appointed to review county fire, Commissioner Lloyd stepped up to the plate to assist with this process, and we had County Attorney John De Leon, Jean Legursky, Public Works, Gary McLean, Human Resources, Mike Barnesian, County Fire Warden. I can't tell you, we have had over a dozen meetings with all of us involved, all of us providing input and gathering data from the entities in our county. So I just want you to listen with an open mind and understand that this commission has been asked to step up to the plate and make some hard decisions, and they're hard decisions. And no decision has been made until we decide today what option we would like to go forth with. So I'll turn it to Commissioner Lloyd.
Okay. As Ashley gets things ready, I would just hit a couple pieces of information. And Mary kind of covered what I first was going to open. First, I want to make sure everyone knows I did draw the short straw, and that's why I am the presenter today. Or it was kind of an appointment. So I'm glad to be able to present today. And you'll see the screen up there. I'm going to present from here because it's easier for me to see. I'm going to ask that we hold all questions until after the presentation. Please write down questions. That will allow the committee as a whole to answer questions, but also it will make the presentation be more seamless and be able to provide answers and questions. Because some of the questions you may have may be answered in some of the slides that follow. So once again, Mary already hit it, but we did have a committee of myself, Mary Toman, Deputy County Attorney John De Leon, Jean Legursky, Public Works Director, Gary McLean, Human Resources Director, and Mike Barnesian, County Fire Warden. And this is the presentation we came up with. The purpose and the goal of the committee was the Board of Commissioners continue to face budget challenges and such, is continuing to seek opportunities and efficiencies to save money while providing necessary services. And I want to just make sure everyone knows, this isn't just about money. It's about making sure not only efficiently, economically, but are we able to meet the needs of the citizens in a solid way? And I think that's one of the things that this report will show. Concerns and conflicts were brought to the board, including jurisdiction on fires throughout the county, overlapping service areas, duplication of personnel and equipment on fires, incident command conflicts, communication conflicts with dispatch, and inefficiencies. The committee was formed to understand the concerns and bring forth viable solutions for consideration by the Board of County Commissioners. The methodology: interview fire agencies in the county, identify opportunities and challenges, develop potential options for countywide fire services, assess costs and service implications of options, and present options and costs to the Board of County Commissioners. Below is a list of all the departments and people we interviewed. As you can see, there was a lot of people we reached out to, including Sweetwater County Fire Department, Wam Center Volunteer Fire Department, Fire District 1, City of Rock Springs, Bureau of Land Management, City of Green River Fire Department, Granger Volunteer Fire Department. There were some folks we did not reach. I know we didn't, Mary did talk to someone out of the Ashley National Forest, if I remember right, and gave some information, and we did not interview Farson, Eden, Reliance,
Yes.
Jamestown.
I did talk to Farson.
But as a committee, we
Right.
because they didn't involve in the areas there and they were covered under contracts. Significant findings. Each fire agency within Sweetwater County was formed for a distinct purpose and has a specific history, as well as strengths and weaknesses in equipment, facilities, staff, training, capabilities, and funding. Below is a summary of each agency, being careful to note particular strengths and weaknesses. This analysis helps us identify redundancies in equipment and or capability, potential areas where efficiencies can be gained in training, facilities, location, and shared equipment, opportunities for improving response times and quality of service. An overview of the Sweetwater County Fire Department. Sweetwater County, and I'm not going to go over this in a lot because Mike already covered a lot of this, but was created in 1974, founded on providing wildland fire suppression within Sweetwater County. In addition to wildland fire suppression, the department has offered tactical support to other agencies within the county for structural firefighting. Facilities, 1 aging fire station with 2 bays in Green River, as Mike described as Baby
Rock
Green,
Springs.
in Rock Springs, co-located with county vehicle maintenance on 430 West Blair Avenue. The facility has been improved but lacks adequate space to store critical apparatus, conduct training, and house staff. Price to construction, new space is estimated $12 million or more in 2022 with current costs. Personnel, currently staffed by 1 full-time warden, 1 full-time assistant fire warden, 19 paid call volunteers, 1 full-time engine boss, and 1 full-time engine boss trainee. Sweetwater County Fire Department, equipment-wise, 3 Type 5 wildland engines, 1 tactical Type 2 water tender, 1 Type 4 2.5 ton military, utility pickup flatbed 2018, 2 command pickups 2015 and 19, 2 cargo trailers, 1 UTV Type 7 with fire pack and trailer, a utility pickup with fuel tank. Services, wildland fire suppression, vehicle fire suppression, fire prevention, structural fire suppression, wildfire investigation. Calls were 95 in 2021. There were an additional, I think, 9 calls provided to us after that information came in. The majority of those it's that. Okay. Okay. And those additional calls were actually, the majority were out of state or a fire check. So we'll move forward. The call summary, if you take a look, and this is from 2017 to 2021. The number of calls County Fire has responded to, 11 have been in Farson Eden Fire, 82 in Fire District 1 jurisdiction, 9 in Granger Fire District, 23 in Green River Fire Response Area, outside of Wyoming 17, outside of Sweetwater County 23, Reliance Fire District 3, Rio Vista Fire District 8, Rock Springs Fire District 23, within our jurisdiction, 301 calls for 60% of the calls, and that would equal your total to 100%. So as you see, 40% of the calls we've made have been out of area, out of jurisdiction, 60% in jurisdiction. Sweetwater County Fire Department calls 2017 to 2021. Number land ownership, number of calls on BLM lands, 172, which is 34%. On state lands, 70, which is 14%. Private lands, 165, which is 33%. On fish and wildlife lands, 1 for 0%. On BOR lands, 2. On Forest Service lands, 11. On local government lands, 24, and 55 unknown. One thing that I think is super interesting is the number of calls within 500 feet of railroad or interstate in that same time. And that's 142 calls at 28%. So when you will actually get to some maps in a little bit later, and you will see the majority of calls throughout Sweetwater County actually happen on or near I-80. That is the biggest congestion area of emergency response calls, and that our map will show that a little later. And just a coming attraction to that, how that map was created was we were able to get fire data from all the agencies, and we used that to use a GIS map to be able to put that strategically so we could take a look at the heavy fire areas and what jurisdictions they were actually following in. Sweetwater County Fire Department, highlights and comments. County has historically and primarily been a wildland agency. In recent years, the Fire County Warden has expanded training and tools for structural firefighting. The county has ordered a Type 1 wildland urban interface engine capable of wildland and structure fire suppression and protection. In 2021 to 22, the fire budget was $835,000 for 95 calls. Proposed 2022-23 budget of $708,494. County Fire needs a fire station, and the cost is estimated at about $12 million in today's dollars. History of Green River and Green River Fire Department. History was organized in 1891 to provide fire protection for the city of Green River. City of Green River also provides fire protection of Jamestown, Rio Vista districts via contract, which we have obtained. In addition, for over 24 years, the City of Green River has handled most calls west of mile marker 96 on I-80 to the county line and south to the state line. Facilities, 2 fire stations. Fire station number 1 is in North Green River near the City Hall, while fire station number 2 is near the high school football field and has multiple bays and training space. Green River has a fire training tower. Currently, they have staffed by 2 full-time chiefs and 33 volunteers. These 35 positions include the following specialties: 4 certified fire investigators, 13 fire instructors, 3 fire inspectors, 1 radiation specialist, 3 certified prior prevention educators, 2 hazardous material incident commanders, and 7 EMTB and 3 EMTA, and all at EMR. Equipment, 3 pumpers, 1 quick attack, 1 Sweetwater rope rescue trailer, 2 river watercraft, 1 pickup, 2018, 1 pumper rescue, 193 ladder truck, 1 hazardous materials response trailer, 4 Suburbans, and 1 UTV. Services, structural fire suppression, wildland fire suppression, hazardous materials response, medical response, Sweetwater and ice rescue, fire prevention education, ISO classification rating of 3, vehicle fire suppression, vehicle extrication, high-low angle rope rescue, inspections, confined space rescue, fire investigations, calls. In 2021, there were 517, 373 in city limits, which is 72%, 122 calls in the county at 24%, 22 calls in Jamestown, Rio Vista at 4%. It should be noted that the calls in the county it's always been kind of an unwritten agreement, and we do have a mutual aid agreement with the City of Green River that they cover calls west of Green River and have done that historically for years. The city and that has benefited us because we've always been more wildland. City of Green River Fire Department highlights and comments. The city has operated for 24 years without charging, has provided fire and rescue west of Green River. The city needs call volume of interstate and west of Green River to maintain volunteer activity. The city equipment is 18 years old and lightly used, demonstrating surplus capacity. If the county were to take over west of Green River, the city would decrease volunteer personnel and equipment per city of Green River presentation. The city has an active and well-trained volunteer staff that allows them to provide services at a low cost to the community. The city has been frustrated with an overlap of services with the county getting involved in calls the county has historically not responded to. The city already responds to calls in Jamestown, Rio Vista via contract, which was 4% of their calls. The city has a long history of services in connection to the Trona mines. Call summary in 2021, 517 calls. I've already hit this, 373 calls in city limits, 122 calls in county, and 22 calls in Jamestown. I think if you look at the graph, the important number to look at is something I talked about the majority and a large number of calls in the county that we respond to and throughout the, and no matter what jurisdiction or fire department. If you notice the blue line, which shows rescue EMS, is at a much higher level. And one thing to note is the Green River Fire Department has a high level of training in the EMS areas. All of their guys are EMS, and they have people that are EMT, EMA, and EMTB levels. So call summary by type, rescue EMS 65, and this is 2021, fires 7, and this is in the county, hazards 29, canceled en route 21 for a total of 122 calls. If you notice, 53% of the calls that they respond to for the county are in the rescue EMS area. 2020 call summary by type. And once again, you'll see that the level of budget is about 16% of the GR, 25% of the call volume, and about 16% of the budget is what Green River has done for us over the years. Sweetwater County Fire District, number 1. History was organized in 1995 to provide fire protection around the city of Rock Springs. For many years, the district has responded to calls in and out of the district, east of Rock Springs to the Wamsutter service area, south of Rock Springs to the state line, north of Rock Springs to the Farson Eden district service area, and west to the mile marker 96, where the city of Green River service area begins. 2 fire stations. Fire Station 1 is located at College Hill and is a modern multi-bay facility with training facilities. Fire station number 2 is north of Rock Springs, likewise with multiple bays and training facilities, including a fire training tower. Personnel, currently they have 4 full-time chiefs, 29 apparatus drivers, 14 fire officer 1s, 4 fire officer 3s, 35 FF2 wildland firefighters, 8 engine bosses plus 2 trainees, 1 faller 2, 3 faller 3s, 35 volunteers, 35 FF2 structural, 5 fire officer 2, 6 fire investigators and plus 2 trainees, and 11 firefighter 1s. They do have 16 CPR and first aid, 5 emergency medical responders, BEC, 10 at EMT, and 1 at paramedic. I think it's important to note the number of people, the calls that correlate with EMS and the training that the department has in that area. Sweetwater County Fire District number 1, the equipment, 3 engine pumpers, 3 type of 6 wildland fire engines, 1 light rescue truck, 2 Polaris Ranger UTVs, 1 pump test trailer, 1 fire prevention safety house, 1 heavy rescue pumper, 1 engine tender, 2 squad trucks, 1 SCBA terror trailer 2006, and 1 utility truck. Services are structural fire suppression, wildland fire suppression, hazardous materials response, medical response, fire prevention education, ISO classification rating of 5 and 9, vehicle fire suppression, vehicle extrication, high-low angle rope rescue, confined space rescue, and fire investigations for wildland and structural. 571 calls in 2021. Kind of by call, fire, there were 260, 100 in structural, 160 in wildland, 200 overpressure rupture explosions, overheats, no fire at 5. Sorry, the 200 was the category. So it's overpressure, rupture, explosion, overheat, only 5. Rescue and emergency medical service incidences. And this is from 2017 to 2021, 1,406. Hazardous conditions, no fire, 76. Service calls, 23. A good intent call, 298. False alarm and false call, 139. Severe weather and natural disaster, 1. Special incident type 3 and not categorized were 6. Breaking that down a little bit farther, fires 260, hazards 85, rescue EMS 1406, canceled en route 209, false alarm and false call 139, and service good intent calls 321, and not categorized 6 for a total of 2,217 calls. And one thing I want to reiterate, the committee has found, and you'll see this once again when we look at the map, at the number of incidents that require emergency medical services, and also that are on the interstate area that are more response-based to vehicles on I-80 or near the railroad tracks. Sweetwater County Fire District 1, the district has a robust structural vehicle and wildland firefighting equipment that is minimally used, evidencing surplus capacity. The district operates a successful fire academy and strong training program. The district has been covering fires outside of the district for many years when requested without reimbursements. The district has a better ability to attract, retain, and develop volunteer and full-time staff due to their training programs, facilities, and broad range of fire services and equipment. The district regularly works with BLM as much as the district as wildland and the checkerboard. The district is very strong in providing on-scene EMS services, and the district contracts with Reliance Fire District Services, which we've also have a copy of that contract. Bureau of Land Management. The BLM management plays a key role in wildland firefighting in Sweetwater County. The BLM comprises nearly 70% of all land in Sweetwater County. It dispatches out of Casper Interagency Dispatch Center to coordinate fire response with local entities, State of Wyoming Forest Service, and other federal and state agencies. The BLM has the capacity to bring tremendous assets to a fire. Air resources are the most common, and with the new seat base located at the Sweetwater County Airport, air resources can be refueled and reloaded much more quickly. The High Desert District spans from South Teton County all the way to the eastern border of Wyoming and covers the southern tier of the state. The BLM has a local office in Rock Springs where fire crews are housed and fire assets are stored and maintained. Personnel, the fire BLM staff 7 units in the High Desert District with 2 to 3 crews in Rock Springs and Rollins, depending upon assessment throughout the district. Each engine is staffed with 3 to 4 firefighters. Fire management officer Frank Keeler is responsible for managing these services. Equipment. 1 second. I apologize. BLM resources are moved as needed throughout the district, but the main wildland resource in the district consists of 3 Type 6 wildland engines, 4 Type 6 wildland engines in the first 3 in Rock Springs, 4 in Rollins. An extensive list of equipment and aircraft can be called in to support fire. Services wildland fire suppression, managed local seat base, which is at Rock Springs Airport, rural firefighter training, and fuels reduction. Calls, we have historical call data from BLM showing the fire history throughout the county. Comment, highlights and comments, BLM is prohibited from directly attacking a fire on private land. BLM can support a local jurisdiction in fighting private land fires that could spill into BLM. They have to be asked to come on, and they can't do it without that permission. BLM uses a cost-sharing agreement on fires, ostensibly low as follows. The area of fire is determined for a percentage of ownership. The total cost of the fire is assessed after fire is extinguished. Financial costs of the fires are split according to the ownership. From this amount, the money spent by the county or local jurisdiction is deducted from the fire cost, effectively reducing the liability. So if the county spent $25,000 on the fire and the county share was $50,000, and the final bill to the county would be $25,000. All of the fire agencies in Sweetwater County and the BLM are signatories to the annual operating plan that explains how these multi-agencies fires will be handled. The BLM needs a local jurisdiction with whom to work when fire starts on private land, and the BLM uses the Casper Interagency Communication Center dispatch to manage fires. Wamsutter Fire Department. The history, Wamsutter is a volunteer fire department that provides fire protection to the town of Wamsutter and to the eastern portion of the county for over 20 years. Facilities, 1 fire station that is inadequate for their needs and call volume. Most equipment is stored outside, limited training space and facilities. Personnel, currently the department is staffed by 11 volunteer positions, 9 wildland red cards, 5 structural certified, and 1 fire officer 1. Equipment, 2 Class A pumpers, 2 wildland engine Type 6s, 1 water tender, 2 suburban personal carriers. Services, structural fire suppression, wildland fire suppression, hazardous materials response, confined space rescue, ISO classification rating of 5, vehicle fire suppression, vehicle extrication, medical responses, fire investigations. One thing I want to note just personally, during our meeting with Wamsutter, what they're able to do with a small crew of volunteers of I think 8 to 11, if I remember right, as we shared in the report, is pretty amazing in the call volume and what they're able to do. And they should be commended for their actions because they really are a huge player and do a great job. I know Dusty leads that crew, and I don't know anyone else on the crew, but they should be commended for what they do. And that stood out very much to me as we did this report and review. Calls, approximately 100 calls per year in Wamsutter, interstate and wildland from the 150-mile marker to the eastern boundary of Sweetwater County. Highlights and comments, response to a lot of traffic accidents on I-80, backed up by Rollins that is 40 miles away. Sweetwater County pays Rollins $15,000 per year for the service. Fire District Number 1 also backs up Wamsutter, and historically so is county, but that's what we've had there. Wamsutter is in need of a fire station within which to work on and store equipment. Wamsutter does a lot of work for the small number of volunteers. Wamsutter is dispatched out of Rollins, which can create issues at times. Wamsutter Fire Department is a volunteer. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. Town of Granger. History, organized to provide fire protection for the town of Granger and historically used to provide assistance to Little America. Facilities, 1 fire station at 12 West 2nd South, Granger, Wyoming. The facilities are currently adequate for their purpose. Personnel, Currently, the department is staffed by 1 chief who is a volunteer and 12 volunteers. Equipment is a FL-80 Freightliner Type 1, GMC 7000 fire engine Type 2, Wildland Ford Type 5, 1 Rescue Command Suburban, and 1 GMC pickup. Services are fire suppression and first aid CPR. They've had only 13 calls in 2021. Highlights and comments: Granger has very few calls and as such are in need of outside calls to continue practice and volunteer development. I think you could also throw in retention and retainment and recruitment also to that concept. Their staff live in around Granger and have a vested interest in community protection. Responsibility is sometimes limited because volunteers work at mines in Little America, are willing and capable of assessing initial fire status outside of Granger city limits, including but not limited to I-80, and have adequate equipment. Findings from interviews with fire agencies: the emergency areas in the unincorporated areas that have traditionally been covered by the cities, towns, and districts outside of their home jurisdiction without additional compensation. We'll see some maps seeing that. This lack of payment for these services make it difficult for such services to continue. As the city of Green River stated in their budget presentation to the city, without the general purpose tax supporting emergency services, we are preparing data to go to the county to ask for assistance and costs, or for them to take over the county area GRFD covers. Towns like Granger, Wamsutter, and the city of Green River cannot continue to afford the training, equipment, and overhead associated with covering the unincorporated areas of the county for free. Number 4, most of the fire stations and resources are aggregated around Rock Springs and Green River. However, there are many rescue calls along the I-80 corridor for vehicle accidents that require training and equipment to complete. Number 5, towns like Wamsutter, Granger, and the city of Green River need calls outside of their home jurisdiction to sustain enough volunteer activity to keep volunteers active, engaged, and in practice. If they only provide services within their town or city, the service area is too small and there is not enough calls to financially support their efforts. Up there, you can see a map showing our current jurisdictional areas and the areas that we each area covers. Up next is a map that actually breaks down fire activity that was charted through GIS. If you were to look through, and if you just take I know it's hard to see from your perspective, it is in the packets also, so please make sure you get online, you can check it out. You will definitely see the correlation we've come up with as you look at the I-80 corridor, and you can see where a lot of the dots really are in that area, is the majority of area. As Ashley's kind of doing a highlight there for us. And then if you'll go to that lower southwest corner, Ashley, as you kind of, she kind of goes down that way, you'll also see where a more congregation of that is there. And if I remember, this is fire data from back to 2017, correct, Gene? Thank you for that, Don. So we did this so we could take a good look at where fires are happening and where we are responding and where we're at. And I think that shows a good indicator of where a lot of the fire is and where the responses go to. A few more findings. Number 6, County Fire has traditionally been a wildland agency, but in recent years has endeavored to assume the role of structural fighting and vehicle extrication. This is especially true with the Gateway South Truck Grant, purchases of SBA's extrication and other non-wildland equipment. Number 7, County Fire needs to build a fire station and house equipment for this purpose. Number 8, County Fire staff lack the depth and breadth of training in specialty areas, particularly in the areas of EMS, when compared to the district and city of Green River. Number 9, it is clear that the city of Green River and Fire District Number 1 have surplus staff and equipment. Both have equipment that is older with very low miles. For example, 15,000 to 30,000 miles for 10 to 15-year-old equipment. The city of Green River and Fire District 1 have been very active and well-trained volunteers. In fact, they often have more volunteers than they have fires. Granger needs to go on calls outside of the city, but at times have difficulty staffing resources as their volunteers work for local industries. We need to work on developing the Granger resources opportunities and giving them the opportunity to respond to fires more often to develop that program and help them out. BLM number 12, the BLMs are responsible, encompasses approximately 70% of the land in Sweetwater County. and their ability to respond to wildland fires immediately is often hindered by the fact that they are dispersed across the high desert district, depending on fire risks. So 3 options were considered and determined by the committee to support the incorporated cities, towns, and districts. Option 1, county builds a fire department. Basically current model, county builds a fire department that would be capable of providing all services outside of the incorporated areas and districts, basically moving away from just wildland, looking at more structural vehicle extrication and taking care of those bigger needs. Option 2, county fire handles wildland fires outside of the incorporated areas and districts. The county then contracts with other agencies for fire protection services to include structure calls, vehicle extrication, hazardous material rescue, etc. And option 3, county contracts with existing fire agencies to cover fire protection outside of the incorporated areas and districts. We did some quick strengths and weaknesses of county fire of option 1, which was staying the same but increasing the responsibilities and scope of the county of Sweetwater County Fire. Number 1, county does not need the county does not need to have a contract if we stay this way. Another strength, county has experience in wildland firefighting. County has wildland equipment. County department would service a large area and be eligible for grant and impact funds. County has control of fire response levels and provide broader level of training and experience for volunteers. Weaknesses, county would need a new building. Cost of a new county building could be up $12 million. County lacks staff training and or so equipment for EMS, extrication, high and low angle rescue, swift water rescue, etc. Limits other entities' abilities to respond to calls necessary for practice and training. The fiscal year 22 budget was $808,494. It can be reduced to $708,494 for fiscal year 23 and leads to further duplication of assets, capital, overhead, and management. Option 2, which was what I called the hybrid approach, where we would do wildland fires through Sweetwater County and run contracts with other agencies for fire protection and other services. The strengths were county has experience in wildland firefighting. This option utilizes city and district strengths in EMS, extrication, structural firefighting, etc. Jurisdiction could be clear. If agreements did not work out, it would allow the county to resume normal responsibilities and allows each agency to focus on their strengths. Weaknesses, non-wildland fires comprise a large part of the call volume, specifically on the I-80 corridor, and EMS specific and EMS and vehicle type situations along I-80 are the biggest calls in the area. One less service provider for non-wildland calls makes coordination of wildland fires with urban interface more complicated. Areas of responsibilities become less clear. Fire type is not always known at time of dispatch. County will still need a building to store equipment. Does not significantly reduce county budget or costs, and still potential for jurisdictional conflicts. Option 3, county contracts with existing fire agencies to cover fire protection outside of the incorporated areas and districts. The strengths, county does not have to build a firehouse, which would save approximately $12 million. County does not need a fire department, saves budget $708,494 in salary, benefits, and operating costs. This option recognizes what the incorporated areas are already doing and have historically done. This option invests in the development of the cities, towns, and districts versus creating another entity. County would not have to purchase equipment, and county would not have to hire further staff. It would be a step toward cooperation rather than competition and parochialism. I think one thing to note, one thing that was discussed multiple times in all agencies, and it was actually discussed a little bit earlier in the presentation, was the concept of moving toward unified fire. And that's actually something I've heard everybody in the fire and EMS area talk about since I've been a commissioner. And this really could be considered the first step of walking toward that direction in this concept. District and city bring stronger volunteer programs, better training opportunities, and more depth of management. Weaknesses, if county leases, sells equipment, and agreement doesn't work, the county may need to replace. County would lose some control and have to cooperate in negotiation with the entities more. Have to pay participating agencies. Cost for Green River approximately $200,000 a year. Cost for district, worst case scenario, 200,000. Cost for Wamsutter is estimated at 50,000. Still potential for jurisdictional conflicts. Might be difficult to rebuild department if needed. And I actually think it would be very difficult to rebuild, not just might. May impact county's cost share status on the AOP with the state and federal agencies and affect other agreements. And identify solutions for county warden, fire warden responsibilities and contributions to the community, such as FLLA at Rock Springs High School. The city of Green River's proposal is in order to assess if contracting for services was a viable option. The city of Green River was approached and asked if they would consider such an option. The city indicated that independently they were going to approach the county for reimbursement for fires in the county or a county takeover, and they would reduce their department. The city met with their city council in a workshop and discussed the following proposal. And below are the slides from the proposal. Just to go over this quickly, brief discussion, description, county request for coverage versus what they're doing or agreeing to do. County request for coverage now versus what we are currently already providing. And county request for future versus what we will ask in return to continue coverage and what we need in the future. GRFD is already currently covering the west side of the county and always have. Now, short-term and long-term supplementation is really the key. Money agreed upon for coverage until fiscal year 2022. Short-term money and equipment for coverage at an agreement agreed upon invoicing date and price, as well as possible equipment. GRFD would need continued coverage. Example, if it was found to be a bad wildland fire season, this would call for more equipment, better suited, that the coverage and not to take the current city coverage engines out of service to fight that. Long-term, establish, adopt an invoicing agreement, equipment rotation or replacement as needed, as well as firefighters if deemed needed, and to watch it growth every year as areas develop per annual contractual basis with the ability to adjust those numbers to both between all entities. County MOU description, current mutual operating understanding is a review of an annual basis and grows per taxes fiscal every year. Example, prior to growth of West areas in Jamestown, we were receiving around 18,000 roughly annual for GRFD to cover Jamestown areally. Currently with growth with Loves and residential areas, they're closer to $25,000 range. MOU to be left at an annual review for this reason, while leaving the west side of the county out of it, as it will fall under more contractual agreements if they're agreed upon for coverage from GRFD. Kind of the methodology is just the national methodology of costs for equipment on call out. GRFD county calls, we've already gone over this. Just a reminder, 65% of the calls that GRFD responded to for Green River for the county was rescue, EMS, and only 7 were in fire. Once again, it's the cost breakdown. It's 16% of their total budget of what they do in fire to help the county. Bottom line, percent of budget method, there's options. We could, if we go the percent of budget method, total GR fire budget is $835,000. County calls as part of the budget at 24% is at $200,400 a year. Cost per call method, $15.95, number of county calls, 122, and you break that out at for 122 calls, $194,590. Once again, this cost could fluctuate based upon calls, severity of issues, and other concepts. The Fire District 1 cost proposal, in order to assess if contracting for services are a viable option, they were approached that they would consider such an option, and the board indicated they would be interested, but only if it did not cost the members of the district additional money. As such, District Chief Scott Kitchener submitted a proposal based upon the worst call volume type scenarios. Because the district would cover wildfire prone areas of the county south and east of Rock Springs, Chief Kitchener included in costs staffing 2 wildland crews separate from the district with 4 people each for 4 months. In addition, he would bill actual expenses for any non-wildland calls outside of the district. A summary is following. And I think one thing that's important to note in the tier 1 in the concept that District 1 did is they realized that they couldn't meet the number of calls of wildland our old department did. So they're willing to actually create that same summer hire system through the district to provide the needs that we were providing through county fire. And in talking to the Chief Kitchener, they would be reaching out and would like to actually, if they were to go this way, look at hiring people that work for county fire to be part of those crews because they are trained and developed. And I'm sure if Mr. Kitchener speaks later, he'll mention that, but I do think it's important. That's an important concept that would protect those employees. Tier one, so the response fee schedule, tier one, the following incident types will be billed at rate of $800 per incident. Motor vehicle crashes, medical trauma, agency request, and additional units dispatched would be at $400 per unit. And tier two would be at $1,200 per incident, which would be vehicle fires, technical rescue, auto extrication, into industrial rescue, high angle rope rescue, hazardous material incidents. Additional units dispatched per request of the incident commander will be billed at the rate of $600. Down below, all incidents that expand beyond a 3-hour on-scene time will be billed at an additional flat rate of $350 per 3-hour period. And any incident paged out to the fire district one that results in the responding unit being canceled would be $600 per incident. He did give us some breakdown. If he was to staff a single engine firefighting crew with 4 people on it, would be $65,845.52. And doing 2 crews would double that to $131,691. Those would happen during the peak season where we have our highest number of people already set through summer hire systems, and it would only be at about, I think, 5 less employees than we currently have. So in summer call outs. So as you see, it will be a very similar system to what we're already providing. And he also provided costs of $50,954.88 if we went with a 3-person crew. For a total of $101,909.76. It was any decision that made today is based upon 5 of us or 4 of us. My recommendation would be, if we were to go with this agreement, that we definitely look at the 4-person concept. Bottom line, seasonal wildland costs. We're going to look at the 3-person crews, about $101,909 for 2 crews. For 2 4-person crews, $131,691.04. If you actually look at the cost per call at 12 for non-wildland costs, $1,200. Based upon the current call volume, county calls per year that District 1 would have to help with, or historically based upon the numbers, would be 60. If you times that by worst case scenario at 1,200, that's $72,000. So basically, to bring in a brand new crew for and have District 1 operate the summer cruise, and then also cover outside calls, would be a total cost of $203,691. And one of the things to note is the number of people on those crews that are EMS and higher level trained. Ambulance district, just want to show you out. Fire district, first call out. A lot of this is what some of the fire stuff could end up looking like. Sorry, wrong way. Just want to show number of apparatus in Sweetwater County without the Rock Springs Fire Department. These do not include, these do not reflect the equipment numbers of Eden, Farson, nor Superior, but it does show you the type of engines that we have and the type of vehicles that are spread throughout the county. Number by type of apparatus in Sweetwater County. Once again, not without Rock Springs or our Eden Farson. If you actually look at type 6, which is the vehicles we would most likely use, there's currently 16 of those in operation throughout our local entities, showing that redundancy that we had mentioned before in the report. So the committee, and there was some discussion, I'll just be honest, that the committee was supposed to create recommendations. But the recommendation to look at, and it will be the board's final decision, was to take a look at option 3. And it would maximize efficiency in the county of staff, overhead, and equipment. Option 3 saves the county millions of dollars in not having to build a firehouse. Option 3 allows for higher trained and equipped firefighters to respond to calls. Option 3 recognizes and funds existing fire service efforts in the county, establishing the cost of these services. Most fire calls were rescue EMS calls, and the fire districts in the city of Green River are very well equipped and trained in this area, where county has been historically more focused on wildland, even though they have supplemented and assisted in the other areas. The county is currently spending $708,484 for 95 calls per year, and both the city of Green River and the fire district have offered to do it for a cost of around $400,000 per year, because they are not duplicating buildings, equipment, management, and other forms of overhead. In addition, as evidenced by their equipment mileage and staff utilization, I do think we have to throw in there that there will be an additional cost above that $400,000 to the concept of a WAMSutter. And I think that should be noted as an important concept. And this option allows the county to cover all fires in Sweetwater County with equipment, better trained staff at a lower cost, and reduced redundancies. As we've looked at this, and I'll just be honest as I wrap this up, I actually have made multiple calls on my own to various resources just to get some thoughts and concepts of this as we look forward. And I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be okay with this recommendation if I didn't feel the people were going to be safe and covered. And I think under the concept that's provided by District 1 and actually creating and utilizing some of our possible employees to create those additional wildland units that we've had in the past under a different direction will meet the needs of folks. And I think that, and one thing, when I asked Scott Kitchener about that this morning at 8:05, because I called him at 7:30 this morning because I couldn't sleep last night as I've been looking at this decision. He actually he created the numbers of what he felt was needed based upon our call volumes that were presented, and actually talking to BLM manager Frank Keeler. And so I think that was an important thing to note. So that's what we have. I do think it's important to note that there has been an option 4 that was thrown out earlier by Chief Bernasian that is not in this presentation because I didn't know there was an option 4. And that's something for this board to also consider. And I do think it's important that we make sure that that was put out there today. So Commissioner Smith, that's our presentation. I just want to end with this committee has really vetted out. We all have met. Last night when I told my wife I had to go do a little bit of county fire meeting, my wife said, see you at 9 o'clock tonight. And that conversation occurred at 5 o'clock. And that's kind of what's happened. Hours and hours have gone into this. This has not been taken lightly. I will be honest, I have some PTSD from an ambulance decision we made a year ago. And I will be honest and tell you, I will never go down that road again. So as we've looked at these concepts, there has been a lot of due diligence and research and discussion. And I can also just throw out there that personally, outside of our committee meetings, I've also met with Chief Bernasian to discuss things, ask questions, and had a conversation with Chief Bernasian because I felt that was important as I reached through my own decision-making process. So those are what the committee has come up with. And I'm going to turn that back over to Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. Yeoman's work there, 50 slides in about 40 minutes. That's awesome. Way to go. That's a lot of information to take in. And thank you for to the committee as well. While I have not attended any of your meetings, I have many of those meetings have no complaints. Yeah, many of those meetings have run into other meetings we have. So I've seen how hard and long this committee has worked, and do appreciate the diligence and the work that's been put into it. So with that, we'll open the floor to questions from our commissioners.
Chairman.
Mr. Wendling.
Thank you. Just a point of order. There will no longer be a $12 million cost to build no building because we mothballed that, sending the property back. At that point in time, when we were talking about a $12 million building, we had plenty of reserves. We were going to do some things. We had not hit COVID. COVID hit, reserves depleted, other priorities came in place. And as of recently, we've turned that building back. Now, we also know that our citizens have been talking to us that said, hey, we have buildings in this county that may work. Take a look at those before you build a new one at a great value. Now, I know we haven't had the conversation, but we all have talked about that option. So I have to understand why you threw the 12 million there, but I want people to know that with what we have as buildings in this community available to look closely at, that option has to be looked at first. So I would just say, hey, that's kind of an inflated figure because I don't think it'll be that much. So I just want to point that out. The other thing that I think everything's pointed out well, but one thing we need to keep in mind, over the last 3 years, our fire department has averaged bringing $100,000 a year back to the county that goes in the general fund due to the fact that we send our firefighters, as does Rock Springs, as does Green River, and that to government fires and that type of thing. So we have been reimbursed that money. And you know what? We have the MOU and the agreements to continue that. And until this commission as a group cuts it off or determines as we move forward, you know, that's got to play in the figure. The other aspect, when the question I have is, or more of a statement, is we look at a 4-month period for seasonals offered in this picture. I don't think wildfires this day and age happen within a 4-month period from date 1 to date 2. What we're experiencing now is wildfire season is yearly. So there's another cost that's going to go through. The other thing I agree wholeheartedly, Commissioner, is going down that same road with what we had going with ambulance that we're still working on. I agree with you, because once you let somebody's hand in your checkbook, instead of using 2 fingers, they start using 3. And pretty soon it's a whole hand, and we no longer control it as a commission for our taxpayers. So just want to keep that in mind through the contractual situation. But I should have probably started out, first of all, you know, good data, good report, good work you were charged with, you followed through. Appreciate the work that was done. The information was great. A lot of hours, both commissioners, a lot of hours, and that is appreciated. And you did do due diligence as well as the rest of your committee. So I applaud you for that. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions.
Thanks, Commissioner Wendling. I guess you guys don't have questions because you guys are presenting. So my question, I follow almost exactly along with Commissioner Wendling. My concern about the District 1 staffing plan of just 4 months at 203,000. So if we need 6 months, then it's 300, roughly 1,000. I don't know if I'm comfortable with just 4 months. So that, increases that cost there. And then, as we have seen, and was well pointed out by Commissioner Wendling, the inflationary costs. If we were to get rid of county fire, then and we have a contract out with others, it has been a tough road with our ambulance, our EMS service, and the escalating cost there. This year, the county fire has reduced their cost by $100,000. Do you think? I'm not sure that we will ever be able to get that from anybody we contract with. At least that's been our experience with the EMS. So those were my 2 concerns there on those 2 things. So with option 1, if we're talking about adding on to current, not just keeping our current fire department, but allowing it to build up so that, say we take over the Green River portion that they're going to be asking money for. Is that my understanding?
I think so. Are you talking the new option?
No, option 1.
Yeah, that option 1 would be, and I think we'd have to make sure I'm not fibbing by asking Green River by a head nod, but if we don't contract with them, they may not be able to continue those same outside of county services. Am I correct, Reed? Yeah. So they would have to pick up some of those extra options. And so yes.
With that though, that brings another question, Mr. Chairman, please.
Please.
How many actual fires do you respond to?
I think
That
that was
use
actually
village
in the
for.
report.
Yeah, that's to keep in mind. It's in the report.
So
Actual fires and that type of thing. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, no.
I just
Commissioner
want to
Kim.
point out that we'd be working with local governmental agencies, not a for-profit private company as the ambulance was.
Good point.
So
Thank you.
I think
Very
there's
good
a
point.
bit of a difference, and I don't think our local government partners have asked for a profit margin.
Good point. Excellent point. Thank you.
And I think, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
sorry, I think one other thing to look at as we look at all options that are on the table is that's the exact point. When you start to look at the number of calls that like Green River and the fire help us out in, is all in really not in fire. It's really in EMS, vehicle extrication, vehicle situations on the freeway, which we're not as trained and we historically have not done, and have actually utilized those services to cover those calls. So if we were to decide to move in the direction of one, I think some of the additional conversations would have to be, would there be additional costs? Would there be additional needs for people? Would there be additional needs for training? Because we would be adding responsibilities and duties that we have not ever historically done outside of support and supplement. So I think those are all great questions. And I think that's part of the vetting out process to make the best decision for our constituents, whether we all agree or not what the best decision is to ensure that we're vetting it out and looking at our options and looking at all details and listening to the people as best as we can.
Good point. Thank you. Any other comments quickly before we open for public comment? Okay, I'm literally going to set my timer. We need to keep this brief. We would like to hear from you. Definitely, but please be succinct in your remarks and to the point so that we can continue moving this meeting along. So any of those who would like to speak, please do so and identify yourself, who you may be representing, even if it's just yourself or a resident of the county or a city. And so we can keep that in the minutes. And again, brief and succinct. Let us know what you got. Yes, Chief.
Brad McCollum, Fire Chief of Granger, Volunteer Fire Department. Thank you, Commissioner, Chairman Smith, and the rest of the commissioners. I appreciate your time. My one thing, the one concern that I have is anytime you put a price tag on public safety, you're going to have problems. I don't care what it is, you're going to run into issues. That's like saying you put too much water on a fire. There's no such thing. You can't do that. You can't predict when, where, or how big any kind of fire is going to be. So it's hard to classify that like that. Commissioner Wendling kind of stole my thunder on the building. $12 million with the vacating all these oil field companies that have all pulled out. There's buildings that are definitely capable of handling a fire department, newer buildings. So that one is definitely, you're less than, you can get a couple of properties for, whatever you need for $1 million or less. You're looking probably 3 million and down. You're looking at an adequate shop. And I mean, they're fairly good. I mean, and they're nice. County Fire has supported Granger in multiple ways with training, helping with just calling out on fires, equipment wise. The Granger it's greatly appreciated. All the equipment that the county supplied through donations. It's brought us, it's brought us into the 21st century with a lot of our equipment. But in personnel wise, they come out and they do like Warden Bernasian said, they come out, they help us out. They keeps their guys fit, keeps their guys doing what they've got to do, keeps them busy. So they're not just sitting on their butt playing on their cell phones. So, but anyway, I'm going to keep it brief, but just appreciate the time and just that Granger is definitely behind the county on whatever decision they make. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Who's next? Good ringtone. Very soothing. I like it.
Hello, Chairman and Council or Commissioners. I'm Jerry Tripp. I represent myself as a rancher.
Come to the microphone, sir. I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. I am Jerry Tripp. I represent myself, a rancher near Granger. And history has proven to me that, well, I'll just put it this way. Of the times I have needed a fire department at my operation, I have yet to see Green River respond. Sweetwater County's been there, Granger's been there. Rocks or Green River, I don't exist in their eyes, evidently. You know, they have professional people to make things look good on paper. Your presentation was very nice. But when the rubber meets the road, I won't see them. Granger has helped many times. Sweetwater County has helped. But I've yet to see Green River show up. I have a little trouble trusting my future to someone who is not in my past.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Appreciate the comments. Other comments? Thank you.
My name is Stanley Joranson, and this is my wife Susie. She's the manager of the trailer park in Granger. And then I'm also helping her with that as well as doing management out there. And as you all know, it don't take hardly any time at all for a trailer house to burn down. And so with the added activity that we're seeing out at Genesis Alkali and the projected projects, we're and then with all that's being talked about over Kimmerway, and there's just we're looking at overflow, and we've seen a real increase in residents there in the trailer park, and so the need for a fire department over there is quite great. And the thing is, as a first responder to a trailer house fire, it's critical that they get there, especially with people involved and the possibility that there could be children trapped in that fire. So with the volunteer fire department and their ability to get out and do it in a hurry is extremely important. Another thing that I didn't hear mentioned at all, unless I missed it, was Wyoming is a tourism state, as we all know. And with the Granger stage stop and the Pony Express route coming right through there, we see a multitude of people coming through there that at any time there could be somebody with a heart attack or some other thing where you was talking about non-fire, but yet that service. My wife fell last summer, had a serious brain injury, and from my sister's house to when they got there, the fire trucks were less than 5 minutes getting there. And then the response by the ambulance was about another 12 minutes. And so the fire people were able to be on site within 5 minutes. And so that was very critical there. And then the one last thing that I'd like to mention about Granger and also Wamsutter is those two are the major taps for all the natural gas liquid that's being shipped out, the condensate that gets shipped out. Within Granger, we have one gas pipeline tap within about 5 miles of the way the crow flies. And we have 2 natural gas plants within a 10-minute to at max 15-minute drive from town. And so at any given time, those facilities have drivers and equipment coming in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, both in the Granger area and also in the Wamsutter area. And so God forbid that there ever would be a refinery fire or one of these LAC unit fires. The first responders very well could save lives as well as equipment and avoid a catastrophe. So I think that that's important. And the Blacks Fork gas plant is a real creature because the west side of it is in Uintah County and the east side of it is in Sweetwater County. So it wouldn't matter which side of the county line the fire was on. If the first responders from Granger were able to get there, they could definitely assist in the on-site personnel that they have that's trained in refinery fires. So that's about all I have right now. But the main concern that Susie and I have right now is for the trailer park and the town itself, and the fact that we can get first responders there. I would say the second is the tourism and the fact that we could have an emergency medical situation where someone their life could be saved by qualified and personnel that could get there and assist them. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Thanks for also serving as a council member up in Granger. Appreciate that. Susie, glad you're doing well.
I'm doing much better, thank you. And that whole thing was just really weird because we don't know what caused it.
Even
We
worse.
don't know what happened, but I will always have a brain damage. And so I've got to be aware of that. And that's something I'd like to share with you guys on these operations with the fire trucks. Our nephew is in the Tri-City in Colorado Springs. And he showed us exactly what is on the fire trucks and what has to be done. And to have only 3 people on it is not enough to do the job right. I don't care if it's an accident, a fire, whatever, but it's not enough people. So you've got to do at least 4. I would say 6 would be more likely what is needed. But they also need the training for medical things because, how many of you have ever done any brain damage help, and there's so many other things that are out there. And when that happens, we need to have some kind of response to it. It's just, we don't know what will happen to everybody. And we don't know if it's just a fire or an accident, but we do need to have some regular people that are on those fire trucks all the time. And thank you so much for what you do, because you do a lot and it's more than most people ever think. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
I will completely take that. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those days.
Absolutely.
We need to thank you. So appreciate
Like
your
you need
thoughts.
to thank your Granger Fire Department and ambulance.
They are wonderful.
Because they are your closest.
Great job.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
I'm Betty Lou Tripp,
Feel free to pull that microphone down a little bit for you. There you go. Thank you.
and I'm
Say it
about
again.
2 miles on the other side of Granger.
Betty, I'm sorry. What was your name again?
Betty Lou Tripp.
Betty Lou Tripp. Thank you.
Well, election year was quite a different year. We vote for country people thinking they think country. And have us in mind as for safety and one thing and another. And I know that volunteer is very, they work all day at all day jobs and then work in the night to get things going for the volunteer department. It's been, I don't know how they do it. But my greatest concern and that I have seen in the fire department on every department is how to find the location of the fire. If anybody wants to get rich, make a technology, whatever, modern technology to find these fires. I mean, we can drive around and can't even find the location in the town of Granger to find out where the need is.
Thank you, Betty Lou. Other comments?
Hi. Did I beat you to it?
He's wiggling back there. I don't know what he's doing.
I'm up next. I'm Jimmy Frazier. I'm a landowner just west of Granger. I'm sure you're getting the point across that Granger needs the county support. I also do not have an address. So if Green River was to respond, I'll tell you 3 miles west. I'm sure some of these people have been to my newly acquired ranch and they would be a lot faster response time. Also, my daughter is in the FLLA Academy in Rock Springs. And not sure if you guys know, but they lost an academy recently. This is a very important thing for our kids. I love the support. I appreciate it. And I want it to continue on for my other children. Thank you.
Thank you.
I seen her turn around and look, and I wasn't about to stand up and say no.
Good call.
Scott Kitchener, Fire Chief, Sweetwater County Fire District number 1.
Hello,
Just
Chief.
wanted to kind of talk to you real quick about a couple different things. The first one was you guys had a couple questions on where we came up with the 4-month staffing model. We don't have a season. We have to staff. We have to be prepared 365 days out of the year. We get emergencies all year round, not just the wildland season. So we're ready to go all year for wildland calls. It doesn't matter if it's June or if it's September or if it's December, we're ready to go. The 4-month window we picked because that's the busiest time of year. That's where the highest potential for fires is within that 4-month window. So that's where we decided to want to have staffed after that. If we get a fire in December when the seasonals are gone, I have 35 to 40 other pay-per-call volunteers that are ready to go. So they can jump in a truck and they can go. So we're not missing anything. The staffing is still there. And throughout the summer months, when those seasonals are there, I'll still have those pay-per-call firefighters of ours in the district ready to go. So they'll just be backing those staffing people up. We staffed at that time because that is the potentially busiest time of year for us and the county fire department. It's just because of the season, because it is. Can we get a big fire in December? Of course we can, but I mean, the potential is pretty weak, pretty slow, or pretty small. I think we've had 4 or 5 fires. This, if you want to call it a winter, we've had 4 or 5 fires, so the potential's there. Nothing big, they're all small, but we're ready to go. And then to also touch base on the hiring of the county personnel, they are more than welcome to come up and put in for those seasonal positions. They're more than welcome to come up and join our agency if they want to get on and become pay-per-call firefighters. We're willing to accept them into the organization. We don't want to see them beggars go away. We don't want to see that knowledge and that training and that education go away. If they can come up and they want to be part of our organization, as long as they meet the requirements that we have, which I'm sure they probably already meet the requirements for being on your agency anyway, we're willing to accept them into the fold. And that's only going to bolster our agency and keep us stronger and ready to go. So that's really all I had. If you guys have any other questions, be glad to answer anything for you. I'm going to go sit down because I've seen Doc grab the microphone. So, but I just wanted to touch on those 2 things real quick for you.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that clarification. That helps a lot.
Well, and thank you for
oh,
the
you didn't have a
extra
question?
time that you put in to help us get a perspective on what you could provide. And the fact that you provide the emergency medical is that's important.
And real quick, can't take any more time away, right? I just do want to recommend or commend the board. I mean, you guys did a very good job of getting together. You guys put a lot of time, a lot of effort in it. Trust me, I know I was getting phone calls from Gary at 6, 7 o'clock at night and text messages and phone calls at 7 in the morning and, for questions they had. So they really did their homework. They did a good job. And they went above and beyond. They put a lot of time into it. So, and hopefully we all did, and hopefully we can get something out of it taken care of. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. If it's brief.
or the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department too, because you guys have gone above and beyond coming up there and taking care of situations. So,
For those online, it was a thank you to the Sheriff's Department for helping out in Granger as well. So thank you. Anybody else? One more turn, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Drake Graham. I currently work part-time at the Rec Center in Green River. I am a volunteer with the Sweetwater County Search and Rescue, as well as the County Fire Department, and formerly with Castle Rock Ambulance. I just want to say, it comes down to dollars and cents, but I implore you to consider the human cost as well. I've made incredible friends with the fire department, and it's a big part of my life, and they're a pillar of the community, and we can't afford to lose that. When Mr. Beck went missing from a care facility in Rock Springs a few years ago, who was out there helping searching for him? The county fire department was, as well as the search and rescue unit. I've made incredible friendships, and they've taken me in, and they've been there for me when others wouldn't. I've had a lot of people in my life tell me I'm not good enough, but the fire department thought I was good enough. They took me in and gave me a chance where others wouldn't. So I implore you, please don't do away with the county fire department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. And
Mr. Chairman.
well, as the executive director of Deer Trail Assisted Living, that brings back bad memories, but thank you for the help back then. No, it's all right. Thanks, Drake. Commissioner Lloyd.
I just want to thank Drake Graham for Drake. I've known Drake for a long time, and I'm super proud to see that his goal was always to be in emergency services. And when I found out a couple of years ago, it's awesome. And I just wanted to thank him for speaking, just because it's just awesome to see how he's flourished. So thank you.
Thank you. We're waiting on you now.
Hurry.
Oh, what a tricker.
Someone next.
We're going to close. Oh, no, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Jason Smoser. I'm wearing two hats today. I'm the assistant fire chief for Granger Volunteer Fire Department. Plus, I'm the field supervisor for YDOT's field maintenance in Granger also. So I'm out on the interstate nonstop with our job. And knowing the fire service for over 30 years, being a full-time and volunteer, I know what the response times could be. And with us being so far in the west part of the county, and you guys going to contracts, it's never a win-win situation. And I just would really ask you to look at option 4. I really think that's the best option for this county and for everybody involved.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Last call for comments?
I do.
Okay, we'll close public comments then. And
No, these are public comments.
Well,
Yeah.
you're a commissioner, so yeah.
Well,
You
but
do everything in the.
I just want for the record, well, all of us as commissioners received some comments, and I want for the record, have them entered, that we have a comment from Ranger Chief Brad McCullum, 3 pages worth of notes that I want to make sure that are entered in the record, and have some good questions that need to be looked at by us as commissioners. The other, 'cause we all saw the copies. This particular one, Lauren, Commissioner Shanefield and Commissioner Lloyd didn't see. We got an email from Rowdy Muir, he worked out of National Forest. You didn't get it, Roy. I looked at the addresses and I don't know why, and I don't know why Lauren wasn't on. But I think it's important to look at this because this guy served at the federal agency for a long time. So I'm going to take a little time. I might take more than 4 minutes on this one, Coach. And as commissioner, I'm allowed to. So with that, Chairman Smith, I've been reading about commission's concerns with the funding of Sweetwater County Wildland Fire Department. It has been brought to my attention that there is discussion within the Board of County Commissioners that a complete removal of the program may be a reality. After working 33 years in the federal government, and most of those years in management, particularly in wildlife management, I understand the issues and concerns with running a large program and staying within budget. However, it concerns me with the complete removal of your wildland management program. My concerns are as follows. The county has already invested in the program. These costs are already been accepted and acquired. The initial cost of starting the program is most costly. Once the program is running, the costs tend to decline. 2, contracting the program to someone else always looks good. However, contracting is costly and most of the time you don't get the bang for your buck. Most contractors in this field do not have the wildland fire training to meet IQCS standards. Having the proper wildfire engines and personnel that are trained to fight wildfires is going to be costly to a contractor. 3, living on the outskirts of the county, it's been very important that wildlife fire personnel are available to respond to a wildfire fairly quickly. Currently, with your fire program, the fire resources are in a patrol status, especially after a lightning storm. Contractors will not have the resources to be in a patrol status and perform their structural fire integrity. 4, without a quick response to wildfire resources, one large fire within the county could break the budget. Yes, the federal government will pick up some coverage of the cost. However, the county and state will pay for the bulk. And I will just reference Commissioner Lloyd, that's your suppression account that we denied earlier. You know, that's the risk. I mean, it's rolling the dice, as Commissioner Tolman shared with us. 5, other land management agencies depend on county resources, and there are agreements in place to assure assistance and costs are covered for these resources that respond to other agency fires. These other land management agencies are also dependent on a closest resource concept for initial attack. Losing the county resource will hamper this agreement and put more stress on others to compensate for the loss. Other land management agencies respond to county fires as well. The loss of county resources could jeopardize your relationship with those agencies. Other agencies also depend on the county resources for prescribed fire. The ability to manage healthy forests and land management is largely impact to prescribed fire. If in fact the issues in funding, then might I suggest right sizing the program might be, maybe there are ways to cut some funding without losing the whole program to contracting. At a minimum, I would think that the county needs 4 engines and the staffing of 4 firefighters on each engine. That would give you a 7-day coverage within the county, rotating days off. And the county already invested in these resources. Anyways, I hope Mike Barnasian can present his case today in a way that reflects the needs of the county residents and that can also reflect the needs of the program on behalf of the county. Thanks for letting me comment. Roddy Muir, retired district ranger of the Flaming Gorge, qualified area commander, type 1 incident commander, resident, and rancher in Sweetwater County. So I'd like that one also entered into the record, Sally. The other thing, I won't read it because we've heard enough, is we've got a supporting letter from Mr. Kundal, who is he directs the FBLA program at the high school. He's responsible for all the work that takes place and the working with the fire departments and that. So I also, and that's in support of the fire program continuing because it's helpful to the students, to the community of Rock Springs, as well as could be to any of the other schools if they wanted to have that training. So secondly, here's one from the Spring Creek Ranch. And it just basically says, Mike has done an outstanding job fighting fires out here at the Spring Creek Ranch. We have had to call him several times through the years. He is always the first one here. I really think it would be a big mistake for us people out here to not have him to help us with fires, especially when we are in this horrible drought. I hope you reconsider. Thank you, Todd and Cindy Jones of the Spring Creek Ranch. I'd like that entered. And the last one is, of course, from John Hay, and I believe John Hay is more than associated with Rock Springs Grazing Association and other entities. Doc, thank you for taking my call. How much money will really be saved when you are having to pay the 3 existing districts to take over the wildfire district? Can the other districts do the additional work when they are existing duties to address? We are at serious drought and risk of wildland fires. Great. I believe this issue needs more study before a decision is made. Thank you. Those I would like entered into into it as well, Sally. And as a final comment from me, regarding the thing that I'm seeing most is talking about saving money. And what we're doing and jeopardizing is the services that this county pays its taxpayers. And the services this county's taxpayers see as valuable. What I see is dollars ahead of people. And I have to say two things. One, the options are viable and they're well prepared. One option that isn't, and I think it has to be discussed, is what I always believed is a unified district for the county. That can start with some planning and discussion with, just as presented. The other opportunity, if we're talking about a unifying district, that allows at the point in time for either Farson Eden to become part of it, Green River, District 1, which would take a drastic move. I know that, Scott, Chief, as well as Rock Springs, but at least it's a start towards a unifying district for the county, which everybody truly believes is important, not only for the ambulance, but for fire, both of them. And if we start this with fire, we may be able to start moving it in the district for ambulance. But we have an opportunity here. And I thank Commissioner Lloyd and Commissioner Toman, Mike Bornasian, and the committee, because had this not occurred and their hard work hadn't occurred, this option probably may not have come out of where it should. That's where I'm at. Also, moving forward, whether it's any one of the options, Mr. Chairman, I propose that we have to have public meetings with our taxpayers before we make any decision on whichever option we are going to use. We did not do that very well with the ambulance. We spun on a dime. We didn't do it well with the general tax, as a result of that. And if we don't do it well here, there's other consequences that will appear we did not do as well as we should. So I would ask, at least whatever option we decide to go with, that this continues with public opportunities, not just, hey, here's a post it in the packet and people read it on Friday and they got to take off work and get here Tuesday and they don't know what time because of our schedule. But I want to see that. And it's only the right thing to do, because reality is I've heard a lot about services that are important to people, to small communities, important out there in unincorporated areas as well as incorporated, because we help there as well, that will go away and hinder quality of life for people. Dollars ahead of people. That's all I'm seeing with this. Thank you. I'll be quiet now.
Thanks, Commissioner Wendling.
I appreciate what you just said. I would like to have been able to say.
Thanks. Thank you.
Whatever you said, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Ditto, she says. Ditto.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner
Mr.
Tillman.
Chairman,
Commissioner Toman.
Well, I would just like to clarify a couple of things. We will not offer, no matter which option, we would not be proposing diminished training or diminished equipment. It would be enhanced. And we would also be adding a emergency medical piece to it that we do not have now with county fire. So I think people need to listen for the facts of, we are not putting dollars ahead of service, and we're not putting dollars ahead of people. We're trying to enhance what we have in this county by making it stronger, by offering opportunities for more training and enhancement of our people and better use of our resources that we have in the county. The high school program will not go away. I called Mr. Chief Kitchener yesterday to ask him some of these questions. You have entities in the county that will ensure that program goes on. So I don't see that program as being eliminated because of county fire doing something different. And if you have questions, I think you could talk to Chief Wamsley, Chief Kitchener, your Green River people. They're more than willing to step up and provide that training. If you are providing an additional service with emergency management and first aid, it's beyond first aid, what they're offering us. To me, that is an enhanced service. It is not a diminished service. Public meetings, I'm not opposed if we need public meetings, but there's one thing on the table that you need to consider. If we don't make a decision soon, no one's going to have the opportunity to hire seasonals, because we're going to be past the time to be able to find them. So if we need time between now, I think Chief Bernasian said March 15th would absolutely be the cutoff time for trying to get seasonals. And maybe I would defer to Kitchener and the Green River people. We can't keep kicking these things down the road. And if we need a public meeting, that maybe we should go ahead and do that, but we cannot delay this any longer. We've got to decide if we're going to keep county fire, we're going to take the alternate option, we're going to take option 4, or we're going to take option 3. I'm prepared to propose option 3 because I think we've vetted out the issues, but if people want to have more time to comment, I defer back to the chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Commissioner Lloyd.
I think there's a lot of good discussion that's happened today, and I thank everyone for being here to share the information. I think that's important. I think one essential thing to point out is I don't think today's the day to make a decision, for the simple fact of the fact that Commissioner Shanefield is not here. And I think that all 5 commissioners need to be part of that decision. I did say earlier in my comments, I would agree and think some open forums would be opportune. But I think if what we need to do is stay the course, because I think and continue to move forward in whatever direction we're going. And I know Commissioner Wendling talks about the unified option and how option 4 actually starts to move toward that direction. I think a similar argument could be made that option 3 also works toward some of that concepts, and even option 2. So I think it's important to vet it all out and maybe come up with a game plan of where we go next, what we need to do when we have a forum. But I do also feel like I don't think a decision can be made today, but also there is some time essence. So no matter what direction we go, people can hire people, because if we don't have the right time frame, it doesn't matter what decision, if people can't hire people, and that has to be an essential piece. So at this point, I don't think there's a lot more we can do with this topic today outside of say, what's the next game plan? I think part of that game plan would be having Chief Bernasian, Warden Bernasian put pen to paper with his proposal so that could be looked at. I think it has to be done in a timely manner in the next 3 to 5 days. I don't care if it's the committee. I don't know if we wanted the committee to continue to vet it, or if we want to do it through workshop. But I think, and then we need to probably get our partners down that we've all talked to and say, what's next? But we need to be moving. And at the end of the day, the biggest piece of the pie is how do we get to that unified? Whatever we do now, this is just the first step. But I don't think we can make a lot of decisions today and move forward without Commissioner Shanefield involved.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. Any other comments?
I lied.
Commissioners?
I lied. I got one more thing.
What do you got, Doc?
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
I think Commissioner Lloyd, number 2, as I look at it, could take that way to that direction. But the thing that I'm afraid of with number 2, or any of them, which involves some contractual stuff. Once you allow people into your pocketbooks, it's tough to get them out, even though whether they're public or private. I think the whole thing has to stay in the county's control. our control, not somebody else's. And I don't want to leave my replacement, because that could happen after today. I'm only one
At this point,
decision
yes.
away from not getting reelected, and I decided go for it. But I don't want to leave the person that may replace any of us or the majority with something that they have no control over. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I will ask, what is your pleasure, commissioners? What would you like to do today? What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I would recommend, I would make a motion to postpone any formal decisions until next meeting. But in discussion, I think we should have some discussions about some time points and some plans of how we get there and what needs to be done between that now and next meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we need to decide if this commission wants this committee to continue to gather research, including looking at Mike IV. What's the charge and direction this commission wants to go? Do we want to make it more of a going to some public workshops? How does this commission want to go?
Any other discussion?
I all of that above. I think the proposal should come before the commission from Mike at the next meeting. Second of all, I think there should be some workshops set up that community can attend, open forums. And remember, it's a big county. It's just not for people to come to us. It's not just Green River and Rock Springs. Right now, we're talking about unincorporated areas that are being impacted. So that part of it is important. I know you're not going to like this next comment very well, but I'm going to say this is, what we decide to do, because I think by choosing to continue this conversation tells the committee that, yeah, let's continue moving forward. We're not, and I know Commissioner Toman, I've always used that same term, kicking it down the road. But this isn't kicking it down the road. This is looking at all the options. And it's a big turn on a dime. So I also think part of this is the fact that, it may not happen in a month. And realistically, we've got budgets. And we're prepared and they'll be presented. And it's time to realize that we may have to have a starting date for this change later than 2 weeks, if there's going to be a change on any option. So I want to share that piece of it. We already have approved, I believe, Mr. McLean. I think we approved to advertise for the seasonals for fire?
No.
Yeah, not to hire, but to,
Oh,
Huh? I thought we authorized advertising seasonals and getting people hired.
We built the two full-time positions that were approved.
Okay. What about the 8 seasonals? But did we?
We are.
We're in the process.
Advertising or?
All right, so we're. All right, thank you, Mike. So I just really think I want to do something. I agree, it's got to be something different, but it's got to move towards unified, in my opinion. It's going to take a conversation, more than 1 or 2, involves people. So we need to move ahead with this year as we are. And it might have to go into September, October of the next fiscal year, but we have the right. Then when we have all the information, we have everything we need to make a decision, and we can turn at that point in time. There's nothing magical that it has to happen today, in my opinion. But I truly believe that we need to continue with it. But I would like to see, go along with the motion. And since Commissioner Lloyd said, what are some of the edges in there? Yeah, we got to decide what they are. I agree, Commissioner. But I would like to see us move forward as the motion presentation next meeting by Commissioner or by Mr. Bornasian, Chief Bornasian. And then we need to set up some meetings with our people out in the county that are paying for this service. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I would think it would be more, if we're going to keep with the committee, I think it should, before Chairman Warden Bernasian presents to the board as a whole, I think you should be vetting it out with the committee to start to look through that as they've done that work and vetted out all of those, options. And at that point, maybe can come back with some recommendations and timeframes and concepts of where to go next.
Thank you.
Because we trusted that committee to do the work, and I think we should continue forward with that.
Thank you. Our motion and our second is to postpone a vote on the options for county fire until our March 15th meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed, yeah.
There we go. It passes. We will readdress on the 15th of March meeting. As far as what happens between now and then, well, I appreciate public meetings. From the many phone calls and more emails that I've gotten, and then today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 of 8, talk about keeping county fire. 100% of the phone calls and 100% of the emails I've received have asked to keep county fire the way it is, or in some form. So I think we could have meetings, but I don't know that we're going to hear a different message.
Well, I agree with you, but I agree with you. But if we're going to change county fire and not listen to those people that are supporting it, we've got to go out and say, okay,
this is why.
Who supports what we're presenting and what good is it going to do for them? Instead of what's good for contractors.
Okay. So, Mr. Bornasian, can you present to the committee a more detailed version of this option 4 by the end of this week, by Friday?
That's what needs to happen, yeah.
We've only got 2 weeks between today and our next meeting, and we need to make some decisions, and you got to hire some people or not. So, I think we really need to make sure that happens. Committee chairs, co-chairs, okay with that? You thought you were finished with this committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bornasian.
I know it's a lot of YouTubers today.
That is true.
Can you just clarify what you'd like to who on Friday?
I would like for you to present in some form or another. It could be just an email or whatever, or actual in-person presentation to the committee that has been formed, including you. The option 4, we're calling it, of the Wamsutter Granger consolidation, or working with them, so that we have a little bit better understanding about that.
Yes, sir. I can do that to the committee, and then the committee would bring it forth to the board like the other options.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I can do
Thank you.
Co-chairs, you okay?
Yeah.
Well, I object to that. I mean, if Mr. Bornasian wants to be given that opportunity, but he had 3 entire months where he met with us over 12 times. That was not proposed as an option. And the committee never at any time proposed to circumvent Wamsutter or Granger. In fact, we talked about how to enhance their services, increase their training, and give them more opportunities to practice so they could keep their certifications, to give them additional equipment if we needed to. Those were all discussed. And we talked about working with Green River to increase their abilities to be able to reach out in that area of the county a little bit more. So I don't see what the option could be. If it's a dollar option, we've already discussed that what we are being offered from Fire District 1 and from Green River is enhanced service. It is not decreased service. And if the public, they need to look at all the facts. What kind of service do you want? Do you want a fire truck to show up, or would you like to have a fire truck with an EMS person on in case you have other issues besides fire? I don't think we should be making decisions without looking at all of the facts. And if it takes additional public meeting to do that, I'm okay with that. But the public needs to understand all of the facts. What are you really getting? What do you really want?
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. I think that you just said we want to look at all the options. I think that's what we're asking our fire warden to do. Commissioner Lloyd.
Yeah, I just also think it's important that we vet out what if we continue with, if we go to option one and we'll go to this contract, there also could, and whatever you do, there's always a chance for unintended consequences. It doesn't matter if it's option 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but some of the unintended consequences that can happen with option 4 are, number one, we could see some of our partners that have always provided services not be willing to do those any longer. And that could create an issue of, yes, we have a bigger area, we have more people with partnerships, but do we have the ability to do it in a safe way? I think that needs to be vetted. Do we have the training, or is that going to create extra cost? These are all parts of those discussion. And as a good friend of mine often says, variables that could often happen. And I think we need to look at those variables, because one of those things that could happen is if we look at the option of 4, and part of the problem is we haven't had a chance to vet out 4. You know, we don't even know what 4 looks like at this point. So we have to see what 4 looks like. But we also could we need to talk about what happens if we were to even look at 4. What are some of those unintended consequences? So I think the committee is also going to have to meet with our proposed partners to say, what are they willing to do? Are they willing to move forward? Are they going to move away from the table? Because then what if we go option 1 with a change, but it's going to cost more money because we're going into different areas and different directions and more personnel and more people? We need to sit down and figure out a plan and vet it out. But we also have to know, as much as there could be unintended consequences for contracts and such as number 3, there could be unintended consequences of 4. There's unintended consequences at whatever corner you possibly take. We vet it out, we talk it, and we move forward. But I do think we need to bring all the partners and have a discussion together to move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. And I think that's what we are asking the committee to do, is to look at those unintended consequences and vet out things and bring us what your findings are. So with that, we've had a motion, we voted. I think that we are ready to move on from this, and we will take a break and return with our commissioner comments. Thank you very much for everybody attending today. Welcome to stick around for commissioner comments. It's always fun. So we will come back at 10 minutes until 2.
I think they're informative.
And of course, Sally's left. There she is. I call this meeting back to order. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. Commissioner comments and reports. So Commissioner Shanefield on the road today. So Commissioner Toman, you are up. What have you got for us?
What else could there possibly be left?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's been good.
Okay, just a quick run through. On the 16th, I listened in on the Zoom Wyoming Landscape Conservation Initiative, talking about the funding and the projects that they do on the 19 million acres of Southwest Wyoming. Met with Christina on ARPA and grants. On the 17th, I went to the Coalition of Local Governments. We worked on updates on the Ashley National Forest planning process, and we do have an MOU, which we will put on the agenda to sign at our next meeting. 17th, joint intergovernmental, the project proponents we listened to for a possible special purpose tax, and we will have additional meetings. Attended WCCA Wyoming County Commission Association legislative session all last week. Well, one day longer than usual because of the Interstate 80. The presentations were great. The first presentation out of the box was best practices for implementation of natural resource plans. And I'm excited to say we're working on a draft, and we will be presenting it to the Planning and Zoning on March 9th. And then we'll start through our public comment process for an official natural resource plan that we need to be a cooperator with these federal agencies, outlining what our policies are. There was a presentation by Wyoming's new energy authority designed to coordinate all energy sources for Wyoming, not abandoning our traditional ones, but to see how we can enhance those while we're adding new ones. Nuclear power, what it means for Wyoming's energy profile. We heard from Rocky Mountain Power and Terra Power, legislative bill review and priority setting of bills. We attended the sessions, had a session on cybersecurity, and we heard remarks by our statewide elected officials. So I would probably leave it at that.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Now that was good meetings in Cheyenne, despite the weather.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, Commissioner Toman, the MOU for,
Ashley?
okay,
We'll do
what
it
what
next
about
meeting.
CLG? That's coming from the CLG, right?
No, it's directly from Ashley, making Sweetwater County a cooperator individually. They don't do it through CLG.
No, okay.
And we already have it, but we didn't have time to get it on the agenda. I just got the edits last night.
Should John look at, or should Attorney De Leon look at that before?
I think I sent it to him last night, or
Okay,
if I
very
didn't,
good.
I will.
Thank you.
Any other
It has been
questions?
reviewed by the CLG attorney, but it's an individual MOU with Sweetwater County Commission, not as a
Yeah.
group.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Excellent. Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. A couple things. I always like to start community based. Want to congratulate the third place Green River Wolves at state wrestling. Did a pretty good job. Sweetwater County had 5 all-state wrestlers. Rock Springs, Brock Fletcher took first. Ian Dickinson took second. And we're talking Ian is one of those guys that represent the unincorporated areas, wrestles from Rock Springs, but lives out of McKinnon. Great kid. Green River had 2 state champions, Cal Knezovich, who got a second, and Thomas Dalton, who also got a second state title. And Spencer Wright finished second for also All-American status. Great job to those guys and that team. Last week I attended WCCA state conference. I enjoyed it. Always good to go out and listen, meet with our legislators. I think there's some really important legislation out there, and encourage people to follow it and reach out to our legislators. I want to thank specifically Representative Clark Stith and Senator Kolb for joining us for dinner that night. I do know we had Scott Heiner, who represents a part of our area, also there, and Jerry Paxton. But from our locals, our really local people, it was great to have those two there. And we had great conversation with them at the table, and want to thank them. Also want to thank just a couple other things. I think at WCCA, a lot of information presented on natural resources. Energy was a big topic. And of course, the world's greatest topic right now, internet safety and computer safety. So just a lot of good presentations. But at the end of the day, it's great to be able to go out and meet some of our partners and talk to our constituents and find out we're not the only one that has tough meetings, and then find out and get some ideas and then share. So it was good to be there last week. I missed a bunch because of WCCA. I missed a couple of liaison meetings, library, Golden Hour Senior Center, and also so I wasn't able to attend those. I do know we're not going to have formal liaisons. One of the thoughts I had of that, Commissioner Smith, is Sally always kept me organized by letting me know on the calendar of when the board meetings are. I wonder if she can continue to do that with all board meetings and make it open for all of us, so we can be able to look at our calendar and say, oh, this week, this is this board. And that way, if we want to kind of do drop-in board meetings, we have a better concept of what was going on. That was just something I thought about with our change in systems. And Doc and I agree on something today, so we're going to thumbs up on that. And then with that being said, I do plan on attending the Conservation District on Thursday. And I'm going to be honest and just say, I do think that's a meeting I'm going to continue just basically to gain my own knowledge, because that's an area I'm weak on as a commissioner.
You sound like you're apologizing for attending a meeting. That's totally okay.
I know I'm just taking other slots
go,
away from
go.
other people, but
Yeah,
they,
you're fine.
just remind people that downstairs, they are starting the quilt exhibit today, and there was a grand opening from 1 to 2, which we did miss, but I do intend to go down. Want to thank Dave and his staff for making that happen. Also want to thank some of the residents of Granger for reaching out. I am going to try to get to unincorporated areas and other city council meetings over the next couple months. Something I actually reached out to the other communities last year about and didn't get a lot of response back. And a lot of that was pandemic really changed a lot of things, but I do think that's an important thing. I guess the only other thing I have is I will have an office hour tomorrow, as I do typically every Wednesday at 3:15 till 5 in my office. So if people want to come talk, whatever they want to, and fires, I guess that might be a conversation, but I will be available then tomorrow. So that's really my report at this point.
Could I make one correction so that Ian Dickinson doesn't come after you? He's on, what is it, 4:30 or 5:30? He does not live in McKinnon. No, south of Rock Springs. So if you get the wrong town, he's a Tough Ranch kid from south of Rock Springs.
Just south of
Near McKinnon. He lives in the suburbs of McKinnon.
No, it's not. It's across the river.
There you go.
So
the suburbs
but
of
great
Rock
family.
Springs. Somewhere and it sounds like you have if we're going to correct, then you have an office hour and 45 minutes tomorrow, not just an office hour. So good job. I saw you smile. Excellent, Commissioner Wendell. Any questions? I'm sorry. We've done our corrections. Any questions, Commissioner Lloyd? All right, Commissioner Wendling.
Thank you. You know, mine will be short. Pineapples, mangoes, watermelons, sun, heat.
Sand.
Okay, outside of that, I was able to do a couple things, and I did let people know that I wasn't going to be at their board meetings, and that if they occurred or not. So first of all, we all got the letter from the Rock Springs mayor regarding specific purpose and status.
Yes.
I don't know. I think in some ways I agree that we need to get, continue moving, but and that type of thing. I don't know if anybody's talked with Lauren. Have you anybody here?
Yes.
How's it looking?
Good.
Good. Okay. All righty.
So, Mr. Chairman, she did send an email to us too that kind of had an outline of dates and stuff too.
Yeah, I saw the dates and everything and that, but still, I kind of worry about time. That's me, just an old guy.
And I worry about the loss of momentum more.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to meet our deadlines, I think, but it's the enthusiasm that we're going to lose from Rock Springs, and that'll be the end of that again.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. The other thing, I got one good report, but I'm going to ask this question. I think originally on the direct distribution money that was sent out, did I hear correctly that Representative Baker voted against it? Did any of you?
I want to say you're right, Doc, but I can't say that at 100%, but
You don't know if he's changed his position on second or third reading, do you?
I haven't heard and hadn't seen.
Yeah, I just, with a 15 million additional money at stakes for consensus money, and then you get you vote against 105 million for your, which is part of your own community. And that's money that we all need to go along, but then I'll just say it. I've said enough today, and he's going to want our support for alternative highway. Keep that in mind. Thank you. Another thing, I am sitting on the Southwest Sage Grouse Working Group, and we did have a meeting on the 16th, and a couple of areas that came up to have discussion over was the Sage and Blacks Fork area of the sage grouse leks and numbers. So there was a conversation about that, and then also to request some writings, and I'll go over those in a few minutes. They also covered the project proposals for that are going on that'll come out of the working groups fund, and the Boyd Hollow at $7,500. Loham Ranches, which is spring, and these are spring enclosures, $39,000, and that'll be split between fiscal year 22 and 23. And most of these are enclosures to protect habitat and that down on river. Pacific Butte, 3,900. It's a restoration project on White Horse Creek. Then there's also the restoration project that's going on Sage Creek. Also along with that is some sheet grass spraying in core habitat. There'll be another $11,470 for that, but that went along real well. Tom Christensen is maintaining, monitoring some projects. He's on the working group, and those wet metal restoration projects is northwest of Farson, using low-tech methods, basically in these streams that are barely trickling, putting down small rock dams that hold the water back, and they figure restoration in these meadows. You see a difference within the first year and that type of thing for foliage, and it's foliage that sage grouse chickens need when they're around water. Then also there's he's proposing a project at Monument Draw, which is in the Farson South Pass area. So anyhow, the big thing that we looked at was the discussion of why those two leks declined in the Blacks Fork and Sage area, and we wrote a request that there be some more technical studies. We felt that the decline was based on the growth of industrialization in the area, particularly noise coming from shaft vents that carry that noise downwind and does impact those leks that are within a few miles. Also drought, predators, i.e. ravens, which we all know are a big part of it. There were a number of nests that were tagged and looked at, the eggs and everything. And the nests that had broken eggs in, they felt over 80% of those eggs, 85% were ravens. And the other 15%, 20% were coyote, fox. So it's really the raven population is somewhat leaning in that direction. They also think roadkill and invasive species, which is cheatgrass. So anyhow, it was a good meeting. We submitted our request for technical assistance to the state, and we'll see how that works out. Just for your information, commissioners, we have a budget for fiscal year 23 of $68,500. And of course, I shared with you that we've been allocating some of it already. So we will continue to work through this next fiscal year with any projects that come up. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Wendling. Any questions? No? To answer your question on third reading in the House, Baker and Marshall Burt voted no, 1 of 10. Voted no on our local government. Marshall Burt. Among 8 others.
Okay.
Voted no on the, but it has, did come out of appropriations and it's on the Senate general file now.
All right, thank you.
There you go. Yes, last week enjoyed visiting at the WCCA. It's been covered pretty well. I think we're still, as we note here, are watching bills, and as we head down to the final days of the legislature, and there are some things out there that are pretty important to us as a county, and so we want to make sure that we support those and don't support some things that we don't enjoy as well. Also attended the Board of Health, District Board of Health Board meeting last Wednesday morning, and also Southwest Counseling's Board on Wednesday evening. Things are going pretty well there. Southwest Counseling still having trouble hiring any master's level clinicians. They, at least locally, they continue to have many applicants that would like to work remotely and do telehealth, but they have not yet received a single application for someone to work in person here. Going to attend the hospital board meeting tomorrow, and that's all my excitement right there. I think that's all we need to know. So, any questions? Should go downstairs and see some quilts. Oh, my battery died. We have
Okay.
executive session, right?
Right.
Okay. I will accept the motion to move into executive session for personnel and real estate. No pre-decision.
So
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.